The air froze with the words, "A grandchild from a middle school graduate is a disgrace to the family." A heavy silence fell over the room, and my heart pounded like a trapped dove. Harold clenched his fists, his face a mask of fury. Apparently, my mother-in-law had been investigating my educational background. I was speechless, caught off guard by this revelation. Unable to bear the suffocating atmosphere, Harold took my hand and pulled me away. As we left, Heather, my mother-in-law's voice followed us, sharp and condescending. "Well, before you give birth to that child, make sure you pass the GED test or something. At least get a high school equivalency diploma. It's a requirement for being part of our family." Later that night, Heather called. "Should I send you some GED prep books?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I was appalled that she was still harping on the same topic. Exasperation filled me, but I managed to suppress a sigh and reply calmly, "In that case, I'll quit being your daughter-in-law." At first, Heather laughed, not believing the words I said. But as the realization of our intentions dawned on her, her attitude changed abruptly. "What? What do you mean?" she sputtered, her voice laced with disbelief and panic. The truth was, we had a plan. "My name is Emily Carter, and I'm a 28-year-old homemaker. I reconnected with my husband Harold at a bar." "Emily?" a voice called out, and I turned to see a man I had met at a social gathering some time ago. "Harold?" I asked tentatively. Harold's face lit up with recognition as he sat down next to me. "I thought it was you. Your posture is so elegant and your hair is so beautiful. You haven't changed a bit since that time." At first, I thought he was just flattering me because he was a bit tipsy, but from that day on, we started contacting each other, and soon we were going on dates. A year had passed since our reunion when Harold suddenly confessed his feelings for me. "You know, I just realized that I never actually asked you out. I like you, Emily. Will you go out with me?" His confession, delivered in the middle of a lazy Sunday afternoon at home, caught me completely off guard. I couldn't help but laugh. "Now that you mention it, you never did ask me out," I said. "But I'm happy. I like you too, Harold. I'm looking forward to being with you." "Me too," Harold replied, his face beaming with joy. Having lived a life devoid of romance, I was thrilled by this newfound feeling. But my happiness was short-lived. A few months into our relationship, Harold asked me to meet his mother. "I don't mind you meeting her, but my mom is very particular about who I date. She's been pestering me to bring you home, so I finally gave in." I had a feeling that his mother wasn't the easiest person to get along with, but I agreed to meet her. A week later, I found myself face to face with my future mother-in-law. She looked me up and down, her eyes filled with judgment. "Well, I give you a 4.5, she said. I was taken aback by her balloon assessment. Harold immediately came to my defense. "Mom, stop it. You did the same thing to my last girlfriend, and we ended up breaking up. Why do you have to be so condescending?" But his words fell on deaf ears. "She's going to be part of our family, so it's only natural for me to have some standards. Besides, a daughter-in-law is supposed to be bullied by her mother-in-law. That's how they grow. I was raised that way by my mother-in-law, so what's wrong with me doing the same?" Her nonchalant attitude left me speechless. I realized that there was no point in arguing with her, as our values were clearly different. Sensing my decision, Harold stopped trying to reason with his mother. We exchanged a look, and he decided it was best to cut our visit short. Later that night, Harold apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry, Emily," he said, his voice filled with remorse. "I didn't want you to go through that." I knelt in front of him and gently took his hands. "Don't apologize, Harold. It's not your fault. I don't want to see you like this. You're marrying me, not your mother." Harold looked up, his eyes filled with tears. At that moment, I knew that he was a wonderful man who truly cared about me, and so I decided to marry him. "Harold," I said, "let's get married. I can support you, and you're the only one who can support me. It might be difficult to register our marriage right away, but I hope we can do it someday." Harold's eyes widened in surprise. "Emily, you beat me to it," he said, a smile spreading across his face. He pulled out a small box containing a silver ring. "I was going to propose to you," he said, slipping the ring onto my finger. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized that Harold was the only partner for me in this world. I immediately said yes. From that day on, we were more than just lovers. We were engaged. We moved in together and started planning our future. Harold was a responsible man who did his share of the housework. We talked openly and divided the chores fairly. At first, I was worried that living together might reveal some unpleasant aspects of Harold's personality, but my fears were unfounded. Harold was Harold through and through. He was my biggest supporter, always there for me no matter what. He was also respectful of my opinions and feelings. I knew I had made the right decision in choosing him as my partner. A year after we started living together, we finally tied the knot. We were overjoyed, but we also knew that we had a hurdle to overcome. Well, so this is the girl. She's pretty, but she seems a bit unreliable. I'll have to train her properly. When we informed her of our marriage, she made it clear that she didn't approve, but she also seemed resigned to the fact that there was nothing she could do about it. Harold looked like he wanted to retort, but he kept his promise to me. On our way to her house, I had asked him not to argue with his mother. It's not worth it. She'll just keep repeating herself, and she won't listen to anything we have to say. So please, for the sake of our future together, just let it go. Harold had agreed, albeit reluctantly, and so we endured my mother-in-law's insults and criticisms in silence. After about an hour, she finally grew tired of berating us and told us we could leave. We practically ran to the car, and Harold didn't let out a breath until we were out of sight. I can't believe how awful she is. I forced a smile. She's definitely got a few quirks, but you promised to keep our interactions with her to a minimum. That's enough for me. Let's focus on building our own happy memories together. Harold smiled, and I knew that we would be okay. 6 months into our marriage, I noticed a change in myself. Harold, I think I need to change the laundry detergent. The scent is too strong for me now. Harold looked at me in confusion. But it's the same detergent we've always used. I haven't changed a thing. Suddenly it hit me. I'm late. Harold's eyes widened. Wait here, he said, rushing out the door. He returned a few minutes later with a pregnancy test, and the result was positive. We're going to have a baby. Harold collapsed onto the floor, his face pale. Are you okay? I asked, concerned. I can't believe it, he stammered. We're going to have a baby. He was so overjoyed that he literally couldn't stand up. I couldn't help but laugh. You that happy? I asked. Harold blushed and looked away, but I could see the joy radiating from him. I was so happy to have such a wonderful husband. But pregnancy wasn't all sunshine and roses. I suffered from severe morning sickness, and I couldn't stand the smell of anything. I was constantly throwing up, and I ended up being hospitalized for a while. It was a difficult first trimester, but I eventually made it to the second trimester, and my morning sickness subsided. I was able to resume my normal life, but a new problem arose. We've already told my parents about the baby, I said to Harold one day. But what about your mother? If you want, we can wait until after the baby is born. Harold offered, but I shook my head. No, we can't do that. She's going to be the baby's grandmother whether she likes it or not. If we wait until after the baby is born, she'll just use it as an excuse to criticize us. So let's tell her now, while I'm still in my second trimester. Harold agreed, and we started planning our visit to his mother's house. But it didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped. You want to visit us? My mother-in-law said, her voice laced with suspicion. Well, in that case, New Year's Eve will be fine. All the relatives and extended family will be gathered here then. Harold tried to reason with her. We just want to have a quick chat, he said. There's no need for everyone to be there. But his mother was adamant. Nonsense, she said. It's a joyous occasion, and we should share it with everyone. Besides, it's not like the relatives are strangers. I had a bad feeling about this. Maybe it was just my pregnancy hormones, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. The day finally arrived, and we found ourselves at my mother-in-law's house, surrounded by relatives. Everyone was drinking, eating, and having a good time. Suddenly, Heather clapped her hands, drawing everyone's attention. Attention, everyone, she announced. My daughter-in-law has an announcement to make. She grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet. I winced as her grip tightened. Harold immediately intervened. Don't grab her so hard, he said. His mother glared at him, but she quickly regained her composure. Anyway, she continued, they have some happy news to share. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Actually, we. But before I could finish my sentence, my mother-in-law cut me off. A grandchild from a middle school graduate is a disgrace to the family, she declared. The room fell silent. Harold's fists clenched. Oblivious to the tension, Heather continued. As a member of our family, you should at least have a decent education, she said. I had to do some research and I found out that you're a middle school dropout. In this day and age, that's simply unacceptable. She looked at me with contempt. I was mortified. Not only had she exposed my secret, but she had done so in front of all of our relatives. I was speechless. Harold couldn't take it anymore. Mom, I can't believe you're such a horrible person, he said, his voice shaking with anger. Emily, I'm so sorry. Let's get out of here. He took my hand and led me out of the room. As we left, my mother-in-law called after us. Well, before you give birth to that child, make sure you pass the GED test or something, she said. At least get a high school equivalency diploma. It's a requirement for being part of our family. We ignored her and left. Later that night, my mother-in-law called. Should I send you some GED prep books? She asked. I sighed. In that case, I'll quit being your daughter-in-law, I said. Heather laughed. What are you talking about? She asked. You're married to Harold, so you're a part of our family now. You can't just quit. You're thinking that being married means that the man is in charge and you're just there to serve him and his family, right? I asked. Heather was silent. There's another way, I continued. We can get a divorce, and then we can get remarried. That way, I won't be your daughter-in-law anymore. Heather was stunned. No, you can't do that, she said. Harold is our eldest son. He's the heir to our family. If you divorced him, he'll leave our family. I rolled my eyes. In this day and age, no one cares about family names, I said. Besides, it was Harold's idea to change his name. Heather's jaw dropped. Harold? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. You want to change your name? Harold took the phone from me. Mom, I've had enough, he said. I've been listening to your nonsense for years. You only care about me because I'm your heir. Well, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to divorce Emily and change my name, and then we're going to get remarried. Heather pleaded with him to reconsider, but Harold was adamant. He hung up the phone and blocked her number. A few days later, we went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. Then we filed for marriage again. The only thing that changed was Harold's last name. It was a bit of a hassle to update all of our documents, but we eventually got used to it. About a month later, my mother-in-law showed up at our doorstep. She was out of breath, and her face was pale. Emily, she said, I'm sorry for everything I've done. Please come back to our family. I won't bother you anymore, and I'll keep sending you money. Harold and I exchanged a look. Then we both burst out laughing. Heather's face turned red. What's so funny? She asked. You're so naive, I said. You said you did a background check on me, but you didn't even know what I do for a living. Heather was silent. You see, I'm the CEO of a very famous apparel brand, I continued, and I've been sending you $30,000 a month. Heather's eyes widened in shock. You're the one who's been sending the money, she asked. Why? You know why, I said. You were spending all your husband's money and you were afraid he would find out. So you asked us to send you money so you could secretly save it. Heather was speechless. You're a perfect daughter-in-law, she finally said. I'm so proud of you. I smiled. Actually, I can't give you a score, I said. You're all negative. Heather's face crumpled. How dare you talk to me like that? She shrieked. I don't want you in our family anymore. Harold, divorce her and come home right now. Just then, Harold's father appeared. That's enough, he said. I've heard everything. I'm divorcing you. Heather was stunned. But, she stammered. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. I'm useless. Everyone in the room stared at her in disgust. You spent all your money, Harold's father said. You can't blame anyone else for that, and you can't rely on our money anymore. You're on your own. Heather shrank back, defeated. Harold's father apologized to us for his wife's behavior. He promised to take her away and make sure she never bothered us again. We were relieved. Heather did end up getting a divorce. She tried to refuse, but Harold's father was adamant. I'm too old to get a divorce, she had wailed. It's so embarrassing. Everyone will laugh at me, and I have no money. Harold's father had simply laughed. You only care about what other people think and about money, he had said. You don't care about me at all, so go find someone else to leech off of. Heather had no choice but to agree to the divorce. She was kicked out of the house and forced to get a job, but she couldn't keep a job for long. She was caught stealing money from the cash register and was fired. She ended up homeless and had to rely on welfare. Harold and I were saddened by her downfall, but we knew there was nothing we could do. We were happy to be free of her. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and Harold and I are now busy raising our child. Parenting is hard work, but it's also very rewarding. We were so happy to be parents. Harold is a wonderful father, and he's always there to support me. I'm so grateful to have him in my life. Harold's father often visits us and plays with his granddaughter. He's a great grandfather, and we're so happy to have him in our lives too. We're a happy family, and we're looking forward to the future. One day, I had some news to share with Harold. Harold, I said, I have some good news and some bad news. Which do you want to hear first? The bad news, Harold said. I haven't been feeling well lately, I said. Harold looked concerned. What's wrong? He asked. I shook my head. I'm pregnant, I said. Harold's eyes widened. We're having another baby, he asked. I nodded. I already got the maternity handbook, I said. We're going to be a family of 4. Harold hugged me tightly. Our daughter, who was now a toddler, giggled and clapped her hands. I smiled. I was so happy to be starting a new chapter in our lives. I knew that we would continue to be a happy and loving family.